Hello and welcome to What Women Want Today podcast, season 3, the Soul Sister series, where we will tackle tough topics straight from our heart to yours. I'm Terry Kellums, your host and coach for women who struggle to find meaning and fulfillment in midlife.
I am Amanda Kieper. I am your new regular contributor. I come straight from the Midwest, Rockford, Illinois. I'm a public speaking teacher and leadership development professor. I'm also a coach and clinical mental health counselor. I am so thrilled to be here, and let's get started.
Let's do it. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of What Women Want Today podcast. I'm your host, Terry Kellums. And today, I feel like this is a dream come true. Today, I have a very special guest, a very special co-host on the podcast with me, my beautiful friend, a woman I call my soul sister, Amanda Kieper.
Hello. So happy to be here. I'm so sorry it took me so long to accept your invitation.
I feel like we've been talking about this for almost 3 years.
Literally.
So it's so exciting to have you here with me today.
Uh-huh.
Amanda, really quick, because I don't even know if I know all your titles. Tell everybody a little bit about Amanda Kieper, like all your many, many hats you wear. I want to hear it all.
Okay. So my full-time job is I work at a community college in Rockford, Illinois, and I teach public speaking and leadership development. And I absolutely love that job. But when I was my third or fourth year into teaching, I started having severe panic attacks. And I ended up going to the emergency room thinking I was dying, and found out that nothing was wrong with my heart. It was an anxiety disorder. And I went back to the classroom and I decided, oh my gosh, these students who are saying they're super nervous about giving speeches are even way more nervous and affected by this fear than I ever imagined, because now I was experiencing it, not because of panic, not because of public speaking, but another reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I need to go back and get another degree in clinical mental health so that I can help people in a more intimate way. So in 2008, I think I went back and I earned a master's degree in clinical mental health. So I also do private counseling. And then with you, Terry, I went to the John Maxwell certification leadership program, became certified to be a coach. So I have 3 hats. I have a coach, I have a client, counseling, and then I also have teaching.
Amazing. You're amazing. Yeah. And this is why all my listeners, that she never has time to come on the podcast with me.
Well, I truly love all of the different hats that I wear, and it brings a lot of variety to my life, and I get to help a lot of people, and that's my passion.
And she just glows, and she glows because she's so happy with what she's doing. So Amanda, you and I just got back from our trip to Cancun last night.
Yes.
And I got home super late. But when I walked in the door, I thought, you know what? Something smells different in here. And and it wasn't a bad smell. It doesn't smell
like a spa.
It wasn't a bad smell, but we had been at a place where like the smell was part of the whole experience. Like every time we'd walk into a different part of the resort, we were like, what's that smell? It smells so great. So I decided today I was going to get out my diffuser and start trying to recreate that spa smell. But I really want to put an invitation out there to my listeners. If you have like a combination of essential oils that you use and you love to make your home smell like a spa or any other beautiful, wonderful smell, if you could go over to the What Women Want Today Facebook page, let me know what that is. I would be forever grateful for that. If you do not already belong to that page, I'm going to put a link down in the show notes today so that you can easily access it. But yeah, what do you think those smells were, Amanda?
Well, I'm not really sure. It just reminded me of when I go to a spa and get a facial. But I will say it triggered me when you just shared that one of my best tips to help people with anxiety and panic, just an FYI, is you unscrew the top of an essential oil. And a lot of times when people are having anxiety or panic, it's because oxygen is not reaching their brain. And the essential oil, if you just unscrew it and then take a deep, deep cleansing breath with that oil, you will get the most cleansing experience, and you will get that breath that calms your mind and calms your nervous system. This can also be done with cuties. If you have them in the refrigerator, you just take a cutie, you peel it, and then you smell the scent of the skin, and you will also get that calming experience that your body really, really needs in that moment of anxiety or panic. So essential oils are good for so many different reasons, but I keep them everywhere I go. I keep them in my bag. And when I'm nervous myself, or when I see clients or students who are trying to give public speeches, I have them open those up and just take really nice cleansing breaths. So
You had that on your nightstand in the hotel room, and I
yes,
opened it and I smelled it. And
uh-huh.
just a little hint into mine and Amanda's friendship and our traveling habits together. Like, we don't always go to bed together. We don't always wake up together. But I saw those and I like, oh, this really smells great. I put some drops on my pillow.
Did you really? I didn't even know
I
you
did.
did that.
I
I think
did.
that
I
one
never
was
even told you.
No, that I think that one was called calming. So you can go to any, CVS, Walmart, drugstore, or just go on Amazon and just pick some of those up and put them wherever you are. They will help you. If you're going on a date, or if there's someone new in your life and you're nervous, open that up and smell it.
You know what? I keep a eucalyptus one in my purse for when I go get massages because I get so stuffed up when I'm laying face down on the bed. I'll just take the eucalyptus and I'll just sniff it a few times. So I didn't
Yeah,
even know I was doing something so purposeful, but
you are.
yeah, good.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I had an experience today. You and I have both been, you're a leadership trainer. We've been in leadership. We're certified coaches, speakers, trainers. We have a lot of experience between the two of us. I came across a
Yeah.
situation today and I wanted to put you on the spot a little bit and ask
Oh,
you what you
yay.
thought
Okay,
about
let's do it.
this.
Let's do
So
it.
I was at my gym this morning and I noticed this sign that hadn't been there before. And I stopped to read it. And it was all about getting a new customer to come in and become a member of Planet Fitness. Oops, I just gave away the gym, but that's okay. Planet Fitness. And
Yeah.
it was all about getting new people to come and join their membership. Or if you're already a member, to upgrade your membership to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm reading it and I'm already at that level because I like the extra benefits that you get. Like, you can invite a friend anytime you want. You can use their massage chairs and different things like that. This gym is so affordable. I don't know what it's like in anybody else's area, but it's like $22 a month for this gym. And I love this gym. So
Very affordable.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm reading the sign and I'm like going down and it says, visit this website to get your free Fitbit if you upgrade or join today. And a guy walks up standing next to me and he's reading the sign too. And he says, oh, he goes, I guess that ends today. And I said, yeah, I guess you're right. And I go, here's the deal though. This is, I get it. Like, these businesses want new customers, but I feel like this is a little bit of a slap in the face to a loyal customer.
Interesting.
It's like
Well,
Verizon. Let's use Verizon, for example. Verizon will have these promotions and they'll say, join today, get a free this, get a free iPhone, get free Hulu for 6 months, whatever. And here you are, the loyal customer that's been with Verizon for 5 years, and you call and they're like, oh, sorry, that offer is only for new customers.
So here's
What?
what I would tell. First of all, I would want to talk to the people that are the decision makers, and I would want to ask them, what are the objections to this sales pitch, or what are the objections to this technique to try to get new customers? And I would hope someone would say, well, what about the customers that are already loyal? And then
Mm-hmm.
right after that pitch, I would say, and for our loyal customers, we're offering this for you this month, right after it.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, so I was in insurance for 16 plus years,
Mhm.
and I know firsthand that it is way better, more economical to keep a current customer than it is to fish for new customers. Imagine, you're going out there every day, you're fishing for new customers.
Mhm.
It's way better to keep a customer you've already had. So that's why insurance companies put like loyalty programs in place.
Mhm.
The longer, like, it's more of a captive insurance thing. So I'm talking like State Farm, Allstate, American Family Insurance. I'm not talking about if you're with a brokerage and they shop your insurance every few years. They typically don't have those kind of discounts that I'm aware of anyway. But the longer that you're with a company, the deeper your discount becomes. So
Yeah, I can't even tell you. I was with Liberty Mutual for years, and I got a call one day from Steve Herring. I don't even know if he's still around. And he's like, "Hey, Amanda, just want to check in with you. We have these new programs, and we looked at your rates, and we actually can get you your same package and your same benefits for like $75 less a month. Let's sign you up." I was like, really? You're just calling me to tell me let's pay less for what you've always been paying? So yeah,
Wow.
it's that kind of thing, going above and beyond. So yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay, what's
interesting.
next?
Okay, so the purpose. So just
Mhm.
to give a little backstory, Amanda and I became friends in like 2009. She and another friend had you tell the story of why you guys decided to do the book club, because I don't even think I know the full story why you guys decided to do that book club.
Well, my girlfriend and I had been friends since high school, and she was just one of these super creative types. And we always loved to learn. And we love this particular author, Sark, S-A-R-K, who's
Mm-hmm.
super fun and playful. And we wanted to have good conversations with girls. And so we decided, you know what? We need to do something next level. So we put together these folders. I don't know if you remember that. Well, you weren't original.
I wasn't the original group, so I didn't get a
Okay.
folder.
Okay.
You had
So
to
for
make
the
that up to
original,
me someday. I want a folder, damn it.
I definitely need to make that up to you. So we went around and we put these folders together. I remember they were like green and purple. And inside the folder, there was like a notebook and there were readings from Sark and there was like a personal letter and an invitation to each girl who was invited to the book club. And we drove around and personally delivered them to everybody that we wanted to join us. And we started meeting at different people's houses. It ended up becoming quite the wine club and some good discussion as well. We were in our late 20s. We all had just been having children, and it was just a great time with lots and lots and lots of fond memories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really the time in my life where I had like the most connected girlfriends. Now,
Yeah.
a lot happened since then, and I know that many of your listeners can relate to that. Some of us went through the divorces, some of us kind of grew in different directions with their spirituality or their religion. Other people had really some traumas in their life that they had to face, and we kind of started to drift away. And one of the things that I really appreciate about our trip, Terry, is that, girlfriends have really been placed on the back burner of my life. In what I call where I'm in the perimenopause stage,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've really withdrawn. And I used to be super connected, like friendships and girlfriends used to be a priority. And then I started getting into like raising my son and my career. And now I'm extremely career focused. And so I think that trip with you was just exactly what my soul needed, because I was yearning for that type of deep connection that you can only get from a really close girlfriend.
Yeah. And when I joined the book club, it was pretty well established. So there were
Yes.
already, what typically happens in a group full of women is you bond with certain women more than other women. And you and
Right.
I didn't even connect right away.
No.
We
Yeah.
didn't. I think it
Yeah.
was, God, years. I mean, so it was probably, this would take a lot of memory, which I don't have since I, probably got like 4 hours of sleep last night. But I
And I
think
was really counting on you. Am I allowed to drink wine on your podcast?
absolutely. I wish I was
Okay.
drinking with you.
Okay,
Cheers.
awesome. Cheers. So cheers. So I'm counting on your memory too. I can't wait to hear it. So your memory was.
Yeah, I think, that as you said, like a lot of us women were going through different things. And one of the things that you and I finally connected on, which is kind of sad in a way, is we were both going through a divorce.
Yes.
We were
Yes.
both super unhappy, but you had a younger baby, and I had already been through a divorce and didn't really want to put my youngest daughter through a divorce. And so, here you are, you show up at these book clubs, lots of laughter, very little talk about the book.
Toward the end, it really was very little talk about the book. I think the friendships became the focus.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, just a
Yeah.
lot of really good conversation, like deep conversation. And so I think what happens, it's like a culture. So I
Yes.
think, we talked about this on our trip this past week, is if you're an employee at a company and you really don't fit in the culture, it's not always that you get fired, but you just don't feel comfortable there. And what you end up doing is leaving and finding a culture that's more comfortable for you. And I think that was sort of what was happening with the book club, is the culture was changing, and it changed quite a bit over the years. The culture was changing, and the people who were really interested, I believe, in that tight connection, that being able to be vulnerable with each other, sharing things that were going on with our lives, laughing, like those were the women that stayed in the core group, and the other ones just kind of fell away after a while. And then I moved to Arizona in 2010. And I was traveling back and forth from Arizona back to sort of close to where, we both lived. And you started saying, let me know when you're in town. I want to come see you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
We
so
truly got
thrilled.
we truly got closer when you moved,
I think we did.
which is
And so
bizarre.
it would be like, you threw me my surprise bridal shower at your home and surprised me with some of the girls from our book club who I hadn't seen in a few years. And at some
Mhm.
point, you're like, we need to go on a girls' trip.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
I do say, I sorry to interrupt you, Terry. I
oh,
do want to say, kind of going back to how people started to change and get
mhm,
into a core group. This goes like multiple different directions. So a couple of the girls were going through a divorce, and then there were others that had very intact, happy marriages. And I remember my ex-sister-in-law, actually, Laura, she stopped coming to the book club because the focus of the conversation for those of us that were going through that really hard time, were really kind of a lot of venting about that. And she made a really healthy choice for herself that she wanted to focus on like her marriage and like those friendships that she had with intact relationships, because she was kind of feeling some of that negative energy. So I think it's so fascinating that you said that. And like, as we grow older and as we hit midlife, and she was a little older, she was like 6 years older than me at the time, you are
mhm,
so much more comfortable in making those choices and
absolutely.
saying like there was a time for this, but you know what, I think I've kind of gone in a different direction and
Yeah.
there's no hard feelings. And that's just the way it was, you
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And the irony of that is
Mhm.
that I was at your wedding, you were at my
Mhm.
wedding, and now we are
Yes.
very supportive of each other's marriages. If
Very.
I'm
Oh, good point.
yeah, if I'm coming to you and I'm frustrated with something that's going on with me and Brian or something, like
Yes.
you hold my feet to the fire. You're like,
Yeah.
but what about this?
Yeah.
And I remember
No,
coming,
Brian and I are both Geminis to the audience. So
I
so
know.
Brian and I, Terry and I, her husband is Gemini, just like I am, and we are very like-minded. So Terry is more like my husband, Gary. And so she'll come to me with complaints about Brian, and I'm like, wait, well, hold on. He didn't do anything wrong. Like, let's look at this from a different perspective. Let's reframe this.
Yeah.
And then she'll do the same thing with me about Gary. And it's like, oh, there's some personality dynamics going on here. Terry's talked about the Enneagram. There's some things going on that now that we're in a much like happier place, we can feed off of each other and really like listen and be open and willing to change our perspective on our own spouses because we're so much healthier.
Well, I think we're both invested in each other's marriages in a sense
Yeah.
because, we know we have good guys. They're not perfect.
Yeah.
They irritate
Yeah.
us sometimes, but we have
Mm-hmm.
good marriages, we have good husbands, and we
Yes.
just keep supporting each other through that. But
Yes.
you said something about Laura that I wanted to circle back to just real quick. And she's just one example. And I miss Laura, by the way. I hope she's doing
I
well.
know. I'm gonna send her this podcast.
Yeah.
I love
So
her. I love her. Yeah.
she didn't need an excuse though. So I'm going to tell you a little story. So
Yeah.
my husband and I used to do this standing dinner night with a neighborhood group. And
Mhm.
one night we just didn't feel like going. And he asked me if I would handle contacting her and letting her know we weren't going to come that night. And I was like, oh, sure, of course. So I let her know, hey, we're not going to make it tonight. We'll see you next week. So he comes
Mhm.
home later that day and he says, well, did you let, her know that we weren't going to be coming? And I said, oh, yeah. And he said,
Mhm.
well, what did you say to her? And I said, I told her we weren't coming. he was like, I know, but
Let
what
me guess.
excuse?
She's a Gemini, and he's like, "But what'd you tell her? What was the excuse? Like, did you
Yeah,
say like I'm so sorry?" And like,
no, he was like, well, what excuse did you give her? I
yeah,
said,
yeah,
right, babe, we don't need an excuse. Laura
right,
didn't need an excuse. It just
right,
wasn't fitting her life anymore.
right, right.
And, you don't need an excuse to say no. And I think a lot of women struggle with that. They
Yes,
want the excuse. It's, I have to apologize that I'm not coming and I have to give a really good reason why I'm not coming. And it's just simply, I'm not going to make it. Thank you for inviting me.
yeah.
End
Do
of
you think
story.
women, going back to your original example, do you think that it's women that don't need to give an excuse, or do you think men struggle as well with that same thing?
I'm going to say it's a personality thing. Like you and
Yeah,
Brian are number two on the Enneagram. I
yeah,
would say you're both very relational. Like relationships are super important to you. And
correct.
I'm going to say for maybe the men out there that are twos,
Mhm.
that's yes, you're probably going to want to give a good reason because you don't want them to feel rejected by you. Whereas,
Correct. Because if that happened to me, I'd be like, oh, was it something I did? Because
yeah.
I'm so relational. Yeah.
Whereas your husband Gary is most likely a 1. I haven't evaluated him, but I know him well enough to imagine. I think he's a 1, and I have a 1 wing. I'm a 9
Okay.
with a 1 wing, and he's a 1. I haven't figured out his wing yet, but so we're just going to be probably just a little bit more matter of fact about it, you
Well,
know.
that one remains to be determined, and I can't wait to have a follow-up conversation with you about that, because actually Gary really struggles. I think his biggest motivation is he never wants to disappoint anyone.
That's interesting. So maybe he's a 1 with a wing too.
Could be. I can't wait. And actually, I'm so glad you reminded me of that, because I would love to have him take it and then us talk about it. Yeah.
And then Jackie,
Maybe we could have our husbands on and like do like husband, and husband, like with the
girl, I'd
Enneagram.
be scared to have my husband on this
I
podcast.
know, but it would be like the most listened to episode because they're both so ridiculous.
It is absolutely comical when we are on a trip together and we're doing a group text, and the direction that it goes is downhill really quick.
Yes.
But
Ladies,
they're
if you have an
fun.
obnoxious husband, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah. My husband's the kind of husband that you never want to have him on speakerphone in a public place.
Yes.
You
Oh my
just
God.
don't.
Seriously, if I have him on speaker, if I have Gary on speaker, I'm like, okay, honey, you're on speaker, just an FYI.
I tell Brian that he still doesn't care. He still doesn't care. My husband's a blue collar worker with, the mouth that goes along with the blue collar worker.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. So yeah, I think that's fascinating. Kind of our history. And then we became super close. I started to come see you in Arizona. We started taking like a yearly girls trip. And then
Sad, we only get to
hit.
see each other 1 year. Once a year. That's it.
Once or twice a year. Yeah.
At the most.
Yeah.
Yes, twice. Yeah.
So we talked about when we were on this trip, like, what is it that we want women to know about how important it is to stay connected at this stage in our lives? Like for you, and I know my answer, but for you, why is it so important that you prioritize this week away and you put your time and your resources and, away from your husband and away from your life in Arizona? Like, what keeps you coming back?
I got goosebumps. So I'm going to just take a little step back before I get to the present. And that is, I saw my mom just totally withdraw in midlife. In fact, I was just talking to a friend of hers like a couple of weeks ago that she had when I was a child. And she said, your mom just stopped answering my calls or returning my calls or any attempts to get together with her. She just stopped responding. And I can think of like a handful of friends that she had that just all fell away. And that part of it was depression, which happens for a lot of women in midlife when they're going through perimenopause. But she was just so lonely, Amanda. And, I think that it's a fear kind of in a way that drives me a little bit, because I say to myself quite frequently, like, God, I just don't want to be like that. I don't want to totally withdraw to the point where I don't find it enjoyable anymore to connect with other humans. In fact, my husband teases me because, and he would have laughed if he were with me today, because talking to the guy at Planet Fitness, looking at a sign, I'm in the grocery store afterwards, I'm talking to people at the Starbucks while I'm waiting for my coffee, I'm talking to people in the grocery store about the tea or, whatever it was. And I'm just super hyper aware and very intentional about staying connected. Now, as it applies to you and me, there is something that happens it starts happening a little bit before our trip, because we're like anticipating what's coming, we're both super excited about it. And we get there, and I don't think other than sleeping, I don't really think we shut up for about 48 hours. My voice was hoarse. Like we just had so much to share with each other. And the just the amount of connection that we have and how it complements each other. Whereas like sometimes maybe I'm pouring into you with like more of like my health and fitness. And then you see things in me that, as a trained mental health professional, the areas I still struggle in, the areas of work I still have to do with myself. And you're able to kind of, not unsolicited, by any means, but you're just kind of able to very gently introduce me to myself over and over again, sometimes it can be a little painful.
Mary, that was so powerful. You were able to introduce me to myself.
You do.
Like I'm reintroducing you to yourself. That is
Yeah.
like such a compliment, because in my career, my goals in any setting that I am in is to help people discover their blind spots
Mm-hmm.
that are keeping them from reaching their peak level of whether it's performance at work or whether it's connection in their personal lives or whether it is with their children. What are the barriers, what are the blocks, and what is keeping you from living a life that is more joy filled and less less suffering. Like
Yeah.
I just, one thing that I know we'll talk a lot more on this podcast about, but my parents just both passed away last year. My mom passed away from stage 4 ovarian cancer at 62 years old. And that was only after helping my father struggle with chronic lymphocytic leukemia for about 7 or 8 years that he struggled with cancer. And then they died within 4 months of each other. And, when you lose your parents in less than 4 months, everything about your life starts to flash before your eyes. And you go through deep depression, at least I did. And you start to like really center and focus on, I'm not going to be here forever. And we have one chance of this. Life is not a dress rehearsal. I have a sign over there on my cabinet that says, life is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. We have one shot. And, when I think about why I go every year, it's because I did watch my mom give her life to my father, who was a Vietnam veteran, undiagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder her entire life. And I'm telling you, Terry, when you were talking, it was like, I could see my mom in your story. And I do know that when my mom was with all of my relatives on the Kieper side, I would never saw her more joyous, more herself, more fully alive. And I feel so sorry and so sad that she didn't get to fully experience all that life has to offer, because she deserved it. And I don't want to have those same regrets. I want to help. In fact, in my coaching, I told you this before, but I have a sentence that is my mission is to help people design a life with fewer regrets,
Right.
because we don't get do-overs. And a lot of times people regret more what they didn't do than what they did do.
Absolutely. You just brought back a memory. When my mom passed away, I found out during my workday, and one of my coworkers just happened to come into the office, and I just grabbed him, and we were really good friends. I don't go around hugging all my male coworkers, but I just grabbed him, and I was like shaking, and he said, "What's wrong?" And I said, "My mom just passed away." And he said, "Do you want me to call Brian?" And I said, "Yes, please." And Brian came and picked me up, and he said, "Where do you want to go?" And I said, "I want to go on the mountaintop." You and I are both very connected to nature. Water is a big thing for both of us, but nature in general is like a big thing for both of us. I think we reconnect with ourselves a little bit in nature. And I wanted to go to this mountaintop, and I'm sitting up there, and I hadn't let myself cry yet. And he said, what are you thinking about? What's making you sad? Or I can't remember what he said, something like that. And I said, she never got to figure her shit out. Like she was depressed a lot. She was abused. She was abused by many men in her life, and she never really figured out how to find her voice, stand up for herself, and really truly like seek out fulfillment. Like, like there are women in this world, and your mom was probably a little bit like this too, like that they're thinking about thriving, they're thinking about surviving. And so when I'm sitting on that mountaintop, I'm like, she never got to figure her shit out. Like I would have loved for her to say F you to somebody at least once in her life. I would have loved for her to say, no, I don't want that. I want this. And, a life with fewer regrets. I mean, that nails it right there. Is if we don't take this time of our life, this midlife portion of our life, and figure our shit out, you're right. We only get one shot at this. I don't want to be that person laying on my deathbed, or, wherever I end up after this life, looking down at my life and saying, what if I would have did this? What if I would have did that? Like, I want to live my life fully. Yeah.
So as you're talking, there's so much coming up for me. I have always known that I've always called you my soul sister. And literally, it's almost as if my mom is being channeled through you. My mom lived on a mountaintop. And when her father passed away, she said that she would go out on the mountaintop and she would cry like this very primal cry, because it was the only thing that would ever help her feel better. And as you describe your mother, you are describing my mother. And I'm learning right now, even though I've heard some of this before, in this moment right now, I am learning how connected our stories are, and such a deep personal level that can't be explained. And I think that because of that, we do have this still untapped, so much to learn about each other, Terry.
Yeah.
That I'm feeling in this moment. I'm feeling like enormous gratitude for you, and even the stories that are coming up as we're having this conversation.
I love it too. I knew it would be amazing, because that's how we are together. In fact, in 2019, we finished our conference. We finished our certification program with the John Maxwell group. We sat on this bench overlooking this beautiful area in Florida, and we recorded a little recording and we put it on a Facebook group. And it was your power is in your story. So you and I have been talking about the power of our story since 2019.
Yeah. And until that moment that you told that story, I didn't realize that our stories are so aligned about our own mothers.
Yeah.
Because you were describing, how old was your mom when your mom passed?
She would have been 60. She died in December. She would have been 69 in March.
So our moms both died young. My mom died at 62.
Yeah.
And their stories are very, very similar. So I'm curious, for your listeners, what, if you go back to the Facebook page after this podcast, like, what was your relationship like with your mom? And do you have any ways of living out your life that reflect how you observed your mom living her life?
Yeah, I think it was a lot about that generation. A lot of them are very stoic. They don't talk about things. And I think we are, I think we are poised to be better than that, to share and to understand our trauma and own our stories. But I did belong to, before I started the podcast, I did belong to a Facebook group that was all about women in midlife, going through the transition from perimenopause to menopause. And I heard story after story about, I want to be alone. It's easier for me to be alone because I hurt. I don't feel good. I gained a lot of weight and I'm embarrassed to be around people. I don't want to have sex with my husband because I don't have any sex drive anymore. And they can be on that Facebook group, and maybe that's a great place for them to start. But I think we really need to take those conversations to real life. I think, so it's, you might have to dive into this one a little bit with your training, but I think, it's easier for you to hold my feet to the fire because you have made so many emotional deposits into my bank account. Like over the years, you have been there for me. I've been there for you. Like we have such a mutual respect for each other, and seek so hard to understand each other, that when you do have to hold my feet to the fire, I'm like, she never wants to hurt me. This is never about hurting me.
No, and in fact, like after I challenge you on something, I always sit back and reflect, like, did I go too hard? I can't tell you how many times this weekend where we would have a really in-depth conversation and I'd challenge you a couple of times and I would be like, because my relationship with you is first and foremost my priority. And, if I ever overstep that boundary, I think that I would hope that you would tell me like, it's a little bit too deep, too fast right now, or, this isn't sitting well with me, and you'd be able to talk. And I think that as you think about, for the women that are listening, as you think about the friendships that you have in your life right now, I would really encourage you to ask yourself, what are they bringing to you? I think that as we get older, we really want our relationships to be reciprocal. So going back to my training, Terry, positive relationships should really be reciprocal. I pour into you, you pour into me. John Gottman is a wonderful marriage therapist who you can research about how to improve the quality of your relationships romantically, but it also applies to every relationship.
I think your voice cut out a little bit. It was John Gottman that you said, right?
John Gottman. Sorry,
that's okay.
John Gottman.
Okay.
So John Gottman has this amazing research, and we'll put it in the show notes, but he talks about the emotional bank account and how if you really want to be able to have a quality relationship, that you have to be depositing more positivity than you are withdrawing in a way that's negative. Right. So in marriages, for example, that are sustainable, they have a 5-to-1 ratio of positive deposits to every one negative withdrawal or criticism or withdrawing from each other. And we'll talk so much more about that in another episode, but it's the same way in friendships, Terry. It's the same exact way in friendships. It's like, every time you send me a text and you're like checking in on me, or going back to a very serious topic, you were at my house when my father was passing away. And I think if I have this right, and it was a blur, but I think you had to leave a day early, and we had to make we made a really tough choice, and you had my back 100%. And you were like, Amanda, do you need to drive there? And I was like, no, I'm okay. Because my dad, we joked that he had like 12 lives because he just was a Vietnam vet, and
he kept fighting.
He kept fighting. He was a war and death as he was in life. And you were like, no, I think you should listen to yourself. And I was listening to my gut, and it was saying, go right now. You took the bus home. I got in the car with my husband, and I got there at 4:15 on August 15th, and my dad died at 8:15 on August 15th. So I got there within I think it was like 3 or 4 hours max. And I was able to send my dad off. My mom couldn't do it, and she asked me to do it. And she told me before she didn't need me there. She absolutely needed me there. And it was one of the most sacred things I've ever done in my life. And that was because you were intuiting what I needed. You were intuitive. And I think that's what good friends do, is they will, sometimes I don't even have to say what I need, and you'll articulate it for me.
It's a constant, like you said it a little bit ago, it's like so much gratitude fills you. And, like we go on these trips, and I gotta tell a little side note. So my husband and I had gone on a trip, and we stayed in some questionable places because we didn't plan ahead very well. And
we have to tell the listeners that I have a very high expectations, and I have this joke that's in my dad's Southern accent. This is not what I'm accustomed to.
But the hilarious part is we both grew up in a trailer park.
Correct. We both grew up in a trailer park. So that's why it's so hilarious. Okay. But anyway, when you go with Brian truly is like a simpleton. He does not want anything fancy.
Brian does not need fancy. In fact, we joke about this with our friends. Like I'm a foodie. I love good food. And I want to go, when I want to go out to eat, it's usually kind of an experience for me. Whereas he will joke with people, and no, he's not even joking. This is like a real thing. He'll say, I like the Cracker Barrel. So
totally.
So, when we go, Amanda and her husband own a vacation club. What do you call it? Package or program, or I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I love to travel. So a long time ago, we got suckered into one of those things. And yes, I'm trying to use it so that it's not such a pain,
It doesn't go away.
Yeah, so it's like that Secrets brand, or Secrets Now, Dreams, Zoetry. So yeah.
When you're Amanda, let me choose. We couldn't go out of the country because of COVID. So she's like, you pick. So, I have to say, this is one of the things I'm still working on for myself, is because I did grow up so poor, I'm still trying to overcome those limiting beliefs about my financial situation. I still have a scarcity mentality sometimes when it comes to money, that feeling like, well, don't waste. And I'm a huge, don't waste that, because you might not get it again, or you might, so I have kind of.
You were telling me, even with food, you try to save every little thing. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how many meals can I make out of this? Or, just how can I stretch this or whatever. So I have never outgrown that feeling that maybe there might be lack still in my future. So it's something I'm constantly working on. But we're in this beautiful place. We're in this beautiful environment. Mexico is undoubtedly like the most hospitable culture that I've ever experienced, truly. And we're lounging by the pool and we're having these amazing conversations. We're laughing, and the whole time the level of gratefulness just kept piling. Like it kept building and building and building. And it's funny because I think then it like pours back out of you. Like you just want to give it to somebody else because you're feeling so full.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I'm always trying to, and you know me, I'm always trying to tip a ton of money there, because I feel like, we have different resources in our life. And the people in Mexico, their resource is their soul. Like they are the kindest people I've ever met in my life. And you know me, I love to get to know them, their families, their culture. I love to, I get their phone numbers, like email, Facebook, social media. I love to immerse myself right into the culture of wherever I go. And I just, if I have a resource that they need and they have a resource that I need, that reciprocity that we can like fill each other up in different ways is one of the most beautiful things in life. So I could not agree more with you, Terry. I felt so full of gratitude. I'm not going to lie, when I got home the whole day before this podcast, I've been stressed out about the money that was spent on the vacation. So I still have that scarcity mentality as well. The guilt set in, like, oh, now I've got to like pay for that trip I just took. And, it's tough, but at the end of the day, I have no regrets. Like I would do it again because I can make more money. I can go back to work and I can counsel and I can coach and I can train. I can pick up an overload. I can work harder. I want to have the connection that I have with you, and it's worth every dime. So.
Well, and I thought you were going to go down the, which I love what you just said, but I thought you're going to go down the path of it's an investment in yourself. It's not that you just,
yeah.
I mean, it's not just an investment in our friendship, which it totally is, but it is an investment in yourself, because when you come back, when I come back, when you come back, or when women come back from this kind of an experience, you're recharged, you're refreshed. And I think not enough women, especially the ones that are still raising children, I think we talk a lot about self-care. I think we're coming a long way, but I still think there's a guilt factor when you go get a massage, or when you get your nails done, or buy yourself a pretty top or something. Like this is a deeper level of self-care than taking a bubble bath. This is
And I told, like, I did have a couple of girlfriends that text me when I was on vacation with you, and, they long for that and they seek that. And I am telling you, we could go on a 2-hour road trip, Terry, if we lived in the same state, and have just as much fun and go hiking in Starved Rock, or go to Lake Geneva and walk around the lake. Like you don't have to go anywhere fancy. Just take time for people that fill your cup. And that's, find a girlfriend that fills your cup, that you trust and that has your back, and that her intentions are always for you to be the best version of yourself, because that's irreplaceable. It's interesting, in my public speaking class, I show this video about it's actually called How Gaming Can Add 10 Years to Your Life by Jane McGonigal. You can find it on YouTube.
We can put that in the show notes too.
Yeah. And in her presentation, she talks about the 5 regrets of the dying. And she noted that one of them is, people said, I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. Number 2 was, I wish I would have spent more time with my friends and family and the people that I cared about. Another one was, I wish I would have lived a life truer to what I wanted and not what other people expected of me. Like there were, I mean, honestly, like for numbers 4 and 5, listen to it, because I don't want to take up your time and I want to pique their curiosity. Listeners, I'm telling you, it's a fascinating show about TED Talk about resilience and how to live with intention. And I think for me, why I keep taking this trip is because I want to live with intention, and I want to be the best version of myself. And every time I come home from a trip with you, Terry, I feel inspired. I feel motivated. I woke up this morning, Terry introduced me to this app called Pep Talk, and I've already introduced that to 2 people. I already took a walk today. I've already been doing like the things that I've been putting off. And that's the thing, is like, who is rooting for you? Like, in my career, I pour into so many people. Mom's listening, grandma's listening. You're pouring into your kids, your grandkids. Like, who's pouring into you?
Right.
That's my question. Because what I discovered this weekend, and I told Terry, is, Terry, you're the one that pours into me. And I don't think I get that as much anywhere else in my life.
Yeah. And I told Amanda, which I think she probably already knew this, but like, I have struggled with vulnerability because, there's a level of shame when you grow up in an abusive household. Like, you feel like if people really knew what was going on in your household and how truly poor you really are, like, they don't want to be friends with you, almost like it's catchy or something, and, for whatever reason, Amanda, you are such an amazing listener, and you're so curious, and you bring out these topics and they go to my heart. And I don't think anybody else in my entire life has ever seen me cry as many times as you've seen me cry. And it's been very good for me. It's always growth, it's always growth. But there's pain that comes with growth. And I think, we need to recognize that sometimes is, growth isn't just all about, I read a book and I learned a new skill today. It's sometimes it's digging into some of the wounds and, digging off an old scab before you can truly heal properly. Sometimes
I couldn't agree more with you. And it's interesting because, Terry, the pain that I experienced today was how you inspired me to use my body more instead of being so sedentary. And so I decided to do water yoga, water aerobics. And today I'm in a lot of pain because Terry is very health conscious, and Terry eats well and she exercises. And I have gotten into an extremely bad habit of being extremely sedentary. And I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it's the truth. And so my body hurts today, but it hurts in a good way. And I'm inspired to keep going. So,
yeah. So I think we're going to wrap up. There goes my dog. Someone came in the door.
I think the dog is telling you it's time.
Yeah. We challenged each other this weekend to answer the question, if you had 3 wishes, what would they be? So I think I'm going to ask you that question. I'll answer it too, but I have one more related question that I'm going to surprise you with that I didn't tell you ahead of time I was going to ask you. Okay. But you want to start with your wish first? Just one, not all 3, just one.
So one of the wishes that I have, honestly, I'm going to put this one out there. I wish that Terry, you and I maintain this and we're more consistent about it. I've made a joke many, many times to people I care about that the only thing I'm consistent about is I'm consistently inconsistent. And my wish for this year, from this day forward, is that Terry, you and I would be more consistent in connecting instead of waiting until our trips, because I really need this in my life.
Oh man, we are still so connected. Even my answer is very connected to that one. And that is that I am so routine and so, like, Amanda knows, like, if she forgets something on the trip, she knows I'm going to have it. Only this time it flipped a little bit. I forgot deodorant and you had some. But...
Oh, we're so complimentary. Like, my weakness is your strength. Yeah.
So true. So one of the things I was telling her is, like, I don't skip workouts. I'm not going to say never, but I'm very good about workouts and my healthy eating habits. And I make my bed every day, and I don't like to go to bed with dishes on the counter. Like, so there's all these things about my life, but there's just one area of my life that I need to be so much more intentional about. And I don't think I'm going to say it here today, but I might share it again or I might share it at some point in the future when you come back and be on here with me again. But that's my wish, is that I could apply that consistency and that routine and that habit to a very important part of my life that would make a lot of difference.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one area that you wish you could apply the same consistency that you have to eating, working out, taking care of your lovely home, your husband. Got it. Okay. I got it. I'm checking.
All right. Here's the final question. This is what we'll sign off with today.
All right. Ready.
I want to know what you think women want today.
Oh, that's such a great question. I think women want less suffering and more peace of mind.
Wow. We could really
Yeah,
unpack that. Maybe we'll have to unpack that on a future episode. But
yeah.
Amanda, Mrs. Kieper, my soul sister, my friend, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on here with me today. This really was like seriously a dream of mine since the beginning of this podcast. And I was just so thrilled to be able to sit down and talk with you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Mwah.
I'm so grateful, and I'm just sorry I didn't do it sooner, and hopefully I'll make some more appearances. So,
I would love it. I would love it.
all
All
right.
right. Until next time, everybody, please remember to take good care of you.
Take care.
Well, that's a wrap for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad to be here with you.
And just remember, we're here to serve. Reach out, connect with us on social media platforms, and dig in deeper.
Yes, all those links will be in the podcast show notes. So join us. We can't wait to continue the conversation with you over there. Until next time, everybody, take care.